Yes?
You think you could ever write a book in a point of view of a girl?
Could I ever write a book in the point of view of a girl? Well, we'll see shortly, because I'm trying to do it now. But, that might be an overreaction. I appreciated when I talked about reading from Will Grayson. I'm just going to tell you when I need one of those, actually. Because you seem, okay. I am, though, writing a book from the point of view of a girl, but I don't know if it's any good yet, man. It's so, I never know, you know, until someone else reads it. I have no idea. I think that writers are generally not very good judges of their own work, and that's certainly the case with me. Yes?
Okay, so I just want you to verify this for me. Like, so in Paper Towns, when they're playing That Man is a Gigolo, is that like imagining someone can vex things?
Yes.
Okay, I get
Yes.
it now.
Good job. So yeah, in my book Paper Towns, there's this, they play this game called That Guy's a Gigolo, in which they look at people who are passing cars and they try to figure out like what their story is, what their lives have been like. And, you know, the variation in how they see other people, it ends up saying much more about them than it says about the people they're looking at, which is true generally when we look at people. Frankly, what you think about other people says more about you than it says about them. In Paper Towns, the main character's name is Margot Roth Spiegelman, and many of you know this, but Spiegelman is a German word that means mirror maker. Like the dude in the old villages in Germany who made the mirrors was called the Spiegelman. And that's what Margot is in the novel, but also many other characters. When other people look at Margot, they don't see anything that's essentially true about Margot. What they see is some funhouse mirror reflection of themselves. And that's true a lot of times when we look at other people, you know. I think even, you know, even trying to be conscious of that and even trying to live life more conscious of other people and their needs and their desires, I find myself, I thought I turned it off. Sorry, I turned it on, ironically. Good job. Yeah, so I think that that's what I was trying to do in that scene, was to talk about that phenomenon and how difficult it is to really try to be understanding of other people. Like, I think about that a lot when I'm in line for the grocery store. This is a universal phenomenon, but you're in line at the grocery store, the person in front of you is doing something ridiculous, such as excessive couponing, or 14 items when there are only supposed to be 12 in the express lane, or whatever it is. And it is absolutely infuriating, and the thought that this person would be intentionally, seemingly intentionally, getting in your way, in the way of you just trying to get through what is in all likelihood a dreary, miserable February day, that you did not wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I get to go to the grocery store today, and you're stuck there for an extra 5 minutes or whatever, and yet, when I am at the front of the line, I often find myself fumbling for my Jewel card or whatever it is, you know, and bantering with the checkout lady, or dude, sorry. And so I think it's a universal phenomenon that it's very, very difficult to constantly be conscious of other people and their needs and the fact that they are also having a day. You are not the only person having a day today. And yeah, that can be hard, but that's why I read. Try to get better at it. Yes?
Did you enjoy Maureen Johnson's takeover of your blog growing up?
Yeah, so I have a video blog with my brother. For those of you who don't know, it's much more popular than my books, and not a joke. And I went on paternity leave when I had a kid, and my friend Maureen Johnson, who's also a writer for high school and college students, took over. And I think she's done a very good job. In fact, I think she's arguably better than I am. But it's my video blog channel, and I'm going to take it back. Yes, in the back.
How much does your books change when you're revising them?
A lot. That's a very good question. How much do my books change when I revise them? I mean, I can only give you examples from the books that I'm holding. But Paper Towns, at least the draft that I turned in, had these very long and, in retrospect, very boring discourses on the history of post office boxes in America. This is true. And it was kind of all about post office. It really was, like, at its core. And I remember talking about it with both my wife and my editor, and they were both like, you know, this post office box stuff, it feels a little supplementary. To which my response was, this is a novel about post offices. If you don't understand the history of post office boxes in America, you will never understand what Paper Towns is all about. I would say about 90% of Paper Towns changed between the first draft and the final book. Not just the post office stuff, but also the stuff that a lot of people like, including where the whole crux happens. So I'm fascinated by this phenomenon in cartography. I don't know if that thing works, but I'm going to assume that it does. Okay, if you don't know what a paper town is, let me tell you really quickly, and then I'll tell you why it's a good metaphor, if we have time. We do. I'm obsessed with maps. We were talking about this at dinner, but I'm really into maps and map making and cartography. And one of the weird things that map makers do is they intentionally put fake towns on their maps. And they do this to protect their copyright, because if they see their fake town on someone else's map, they know for a fact that their map was copied, and there's almost no other way to know, because all accurate maps look about the same, right? So the only way to really establish your copyright is to intentionally put false information in your map. So there are these two guys named Otto G. Lindenberg and Ernest Alpers who are making a map for the General Drafting Company in 1936 of the state of New York for Esso, which is now Exxon. Back in the old days, you would get a free map at a gas station, which was kind of an incentive to go to the gas station. And they put a fake town just south of the Catskill Mountains called Agloe, which is a anagram of their initials. Ernest G. Alpers, Otto Lindbergh. And so they put it on their map, no big deal. Lots of people do this, by the way. If you know anything about Ohio State and Michigan as higher educational institutions, it will not surprise you to learn that when a Michigan-based company made a map of Ohio, they made two cities, two paper towns, one of which was called Go Blue, and the other of which was called Beat OSU, or Beatosu, I guess, if you were reading it as a city name. But this town of Agloe is still on General Drafting maps. I have every map that they've published since 1937. The last one came out in 1999. It still had Agloe on it. Agloe is listed with a population of 0, so that you know that it's a fake town if you really, really pay attention. About 30 years after they first put it on the map, Rand McNally publishes a map with Agloe, New York on it in the same spot. And so General Drafting calls Rand McNally, and they're like, you guys are in big, big trouble, because we made up Agloe, New York, and I just saw it on your map, and we're going to sue the pants off of you. And Rand McNally says, no, it's real, man. And it was. Because people kept going to that intersection, expecting there to be a place called Agloe, New York, someone built one. They built a gas station and general store called the Agloe General Store. This is a very good metaphor for writers, because it implies that things that get written down that are imagined can become real, which is a nice thing to think about for a writer. But it also says a lot about the relationship between the world and the world that we map. It's very obvious to say that the actual world reflects, or the map of the world reflects the actual world, but in important and lasting ways, the way we map the world also shapes the world. For instance, the fact that we put America on top on our maps says something about the way that we think of America, in exactly the same way that it says something about us, the way Australians think of Australians, that they put Australia at the top of their maps. I think that more broadly speaking, it shows us that the things that we imagine when we are mapping our landscape of ourselves and other people, and the way we think of other people, and the way we think of ourselves, what kind of person am I? When we are answering that question, what kind of person am I for ourselves, the way we answer that question has a lasting effect on the kind of life that we have. And I don't mean that in some like secret-y Oprah way, like you can think your way out of heart disease or whatever, but I do genuinely believe that you are more likely to have the things that are on your map happen than the things that aren't on your